Business property and liability insurance is simple. It's just property insurance basically that protects small businesses against damage, losses to physical space or equipment, injuries to customers and visitors, which is major if you have a walk-in type of facility. And our property insurance covers the building, inventory, and all pretty much everything that's involved with the property of the business. And it actually reimburses, and this is a very good point at the end. It reimburses on the actual cash value or replacement cost. And everyone that we get folks come in all the time, and they say, "Well, Tom, you know, I have a policy. I thought I need to rebuild. It costs me $1 million to rebuild, but the insurance company only gave me $500,000. Why?" And a lot of times that they had more or less actual cash value versus replacement cost. And actual cash value says this is what the value of the property is now, and we're going to appreciate it back. Replacement cost, they're going to rebuild it as it was. So if you're trying to buy a business property insurance, please, it costs a little more, but in the end, it's going to be much more beneficial. Attempt to get replacement costs over actual cash value, unless you have a tremendous amount of money in the bank to pay for this or pay for those losses. And as other special considerations in with property insurance are the asset values of the property before purchasing coverage, and keep copies of receipts. A lot of folks, when you're dealing with businesses, I usually take pictures, which is the next thing, of all of my assets to make sure I have copies of it, so so the insurance company at least can identify the fact that I actually own the property. And have high values on special items accessed by appraisers. And even this facility, you have art, and a lot of folks, a lot of businesses have major big art, and they're appraised and they go at high value. Please make sure that you have them appraised and you have documentation relative to the appraisals. And the main thing is, don't rely on your landlord's insurance, because if you're renting, even if you're renting as an individual, your landlord's insurance only deals with his property and it doesn't deal with your property. So you better really understand that particular process, and obviously you got to read your lease carefully and understand liability limits. Business interruption and continuation insurance I pretty much explained, but some of the things that we need to look at in terms of whether you need to buy it is typically it doesn't begin for a specified period of time, and costs tied up to small businesses like fire at a travel agency versus fire at an art gallery. Most time when you're dealing with if you have a walk-in business or retail business, and you're dealing with business interruption, make sure that you have sufficient tax information, because what they want to do is look at last year and make sure that you have enough documentation to prove that you were making that money, the same amount of money last year, because that's what they're going to base your payment on. It says it covers lost earnings and expenses, and this is information that we pretty much provided. Liability insurance covers the bodily injury, the damage to others' properties, personal injury, and false and misleading advertising that can occur, and pretty much a reputational risk type of process. And even trespassers can sue, and that's very, very important when you're dealing with small businesses. Liability insurance. And it pretty much doesn't cover every type of claim, because it doesn't cover injuries to employees, because that's covered by workers' comp. Sexual harassment and wrongful termination, you have to buy a specific coverage for that, because that's not covered in the liability. Operating an auto or truck covered by your commercial liability product. And wrongful professional practices is an error and omission coverage that you have to buy. But all of these particular coverages, as we go further, you're going to see it's something called a BOP policy, which is a business owner's policy, that's been very beneficial in trying to collect all these different risks under one policy, so you don't have to go and buy individual riders to cover all these particular claims. Other types of products that they have in liability insurance are umbrella liability policy, which is a policy on top of your current small business policy. If you have a business property liability insurance policy, it might limit it to $1 million. An umbrella liability policy goes to $2 million to $10 million, and it provides additional coverages there. E-insurance is dealing with the internet and other types of coverages in that particular context. Special considerations that a business owner should have relative to liability insurance is premiums typically based on estimates on your sales and payrolls, which I mentioned kind of before. And you also probably, what they're not saying here is probably get something relative to your taxes. And the type of business associated risk affected premiums are toy manufacturers, $3 to every 1,000 of sales. Florists, $1.50 to every 1,000. And documented practices relative to safety procedures may lower premiums. And this is the BOP policy I was mentioning, and mentioning it right here. It covers the property, business interruption, continuation, and liability coverages. And it's often less costly option because it's consolidating all these different risks under one policy. These are some of the tips to reduce the cost of business risk. And if you have questions about how to reduce business risk insurance costs, please contact us. But it's to install fire and safety alarms, and train employees for emergencies, and have employees keep valuables in secure place and location. And if employees use use machinery, provide goggles, gloves, and other types of safety gear. And make sure you keep your office space in good condition. Because when the insurance companies come in and they see that you have your office space is not in good condition, they might challenge some of the costs that they're going to indemnify you for. Tips and factors affecting premiums in the business property are, compare policies for competitive rates. And what you can do, usually brokers do that pretty well. And you have insurance brokers and you're concerned about what the insurance brokers are charging. They usually go out and get what we call estimates from like 7 or 8 different companies, and then they can compare rates for you, and they get the lower rates. And insurance brokers represent the customer. So the individual customer is supposed to be who pays them, and we've been working very hard to make sure that they understand what their duties are, because we had a major national settlement against some of our biggest insurance brokers for not necessarily representing the businesses.